What insult was so mean that it permanently damaged your self-esteem? I'll start. When I was younger, an older friend that I used to look up to back then told me while we're having fun in a group, if could see yourself laugh, you would probably never laugh again. I'm still self-conscious about my laugh 10 years later. You run weird. Apostrophe. I had an awful stepmother. Her and my dad locked me in my room aside from school with nothing but a sleeping bag for 2 years. Changed the doorknob on my door so it locked on the outside. She would bring me my dinner, set it on the floor and say, "Here doggy doggy." It ruined me in every way. A girl from my class looked at me and said, "You're really ugly." It was probably something unnecessary again. My best friend who constantly told me this when she didn't really hear what I said. Doesn't sound too harsh, but it made me stop talking as much and thinking of myself as a boring person people don't enjoy talking to. It's your fault your mother's in hospital. She had tried to kill herself. I was 6. Thanks, Dad. You're poor you. And why is your lunch so smelly? Dog eater. Yeah, I grew up not super wealthy like other kids, being first generation with immigrant parents. It really hurt. I hated eating the lunches my mom made while other kids ate Lunchables and prepackaged foods or bought food from the cafeteria. Looking back, I shouldn't have been ashamed given my mom was making really nice bentos. So I'd forego eating lunch almost every day. I'd eat maybe a small bag of chips since that was cheap to get. To this day I don't really eat lunch. I got made fun of for my teeth when I was young. They were all over the place and I had to have braces twice and a permanent retainer to fix them. No notable insult comes to mind, but the other kids would laugh if I smiled or laughed because they were making fun of my teeth. I'm 31 with a beautiful smile now and I'm still weird about smiling. When I told my father I wanted to come home to the family property and work on it, and he said that was not going to happen. He said that he had 2 useful sons to run the property, why would he want a useless daughter to be involved? The irony is that my brothers were given the family farm and lost it. I was given nothing and now have my own farm. I was trying to learn guitar and I fell in love with it. I would practice every day after school. I tried showing my dad how I was progressing and he told me, "Is that all you can do?" It's been 5 years and I've never touched my guitar since then. Extra life. My 2nd grade teacher, the day after I came back to school from being sick, the class was better without you in it. My ex and I had a common friend. When we were still dating, he told our friend, "She's like a puppy." Our friend confided this info to me. I thought it was a good thing until he said that. He added, "You can do whatever you want and say whatever you want and she'll still be happy to see you." My forgiving personality was taken for granted. Pretty much my whole family, aside of my mother, really hated me from a young age. One of my uncles has 2 kids older than me and my aunt also 2 kids, one younger, one same age. They all had problems with their kids. Either drugs, violence or some other 2 years before I graduated from school, my uncle bet about that I will also learn soon where my place is. I never did bad in school, but his kids had to repeat classes multiple times. I graduated eventually before one of his sons, even though he was 3 years older. From that day onwards he was either ignoring me or spitting really nasty insults in my direction when nobody else listened. When both of my grandparents got sick with cancer, I decided to move to in their house and care for them before and after my work. I grew up with my grandparents until I was 15 because my mother was a single mom and worked in shifts. So it felt like the right thing to do. But my uncle didn't have any of it. Even though he lived basically next to them, he never even visited them. Only if he needed something. One day he drove by the house when I was outside mowing. He stopped, got out of his car right into my face and told me then and there that he will kill me and my mother if I even think about stealing his heritage from my grandparents. And also that I'm worthless and I should watch my back from now on. I endured years of insults from him and later my aunt as well, because I was the one with a good paying job and I somehow also managed to look after my grandparents, while their kids were basically doing nothing. After my grandmother died in 2011, I completely broke down what AOFC used to their advantage. I had multiple breakdowns during that time and developed depression. I couldn't work for months because of them. I still feel really insecure and had to rebuild my self-esteem from ground up over the years. But sometimes the self-doubt comes through again and I really need to try not breaking down again. And that's after I moved to a different country and didn't see them for 6 years now. Before my grandfather died in 2018, I visited him in the hospital. This was the first time that he told me that he knew exactly what my uncle and aunt did to me, but he realized it way too late. Me and my mother inherited everything from him. The house, his land and a big chunk of money. The rest only got the minimum. When I was in school I was often called a garden gnome because I was short and fat, I guess. I never forgot that. I remember seeing a picture on someone's Facebook of me in a crowd and someone had wrote "look in the back. Found the gnome." It hurt, because I was never even mean to these kids but they hated me enough to do that. Oh boy. I was around 7 years old. My mum invited her friend round and she brought her daughter along. We were playing and the girl told me about her ballet classes. I asked my mum if I could go to ballet class with her and she said they'd take one look at me and tell me sumo wrestling was down the hall and I was in the wrong room. This was about 15 years ago and it still hurts to think about. I've brought it up before and she conveniently doesn't remember. Thanks mum. When I was 10, I was washing my hands in the park bathroom when 2 older girls came in. They started saying, "You know this is the girls' bathroom, right?" and telling me the boys' bathroom was on the other side. I was very confused and nodded along until one of them finally said, "Wait, I think that's a girl," and they both started laughing and saying sorry in a bit of a half-hearted, jokey way before leaving me alone. I had people make fun of my appearance before and after that. Mostly it was because I had really short hair. Nobody in my family knew how to take care of afro type hair, so it was always very damaged and never grew. But something about that encounter still cuts deep 10 years later. I've finally gotten my hair to shoulder length and I'm not really mistaken for a guy anymore, but I don't think I'll ever not be self-conscious about my hair. My mom said to my aunt, while I was in the other corner of the room and they didn't realize, "You are lucky. Both of your kids are handsome. Me is not good looking. Apostrophe. You're disgusting. No one will ever love you and you will die alone, love, mom." If only your face looked better you might actually be hot because your body is okay. IDKY I still think of this because I don't think they were trying to be cruel but I can't change my face. Your tits are so big that ex name left you cause she felt lesbian. I have stretch marks because I'm very tall for my age and had a growth spurt during quarantine. You look like a tiger with these stretch marks. Everybody will think you're ugly. Thanks mom for making me hate myself even more. Like, why did you even go to Vegas? You're so boring. I bet you ruined it for your friends. My co-worker, completely 100% unprompted, weeks after I had returned. My other co-workers jumped in basically immediately and called her out, but the damage was done. Years later I still can't help but label myself as the boring friend. You will die alone and no one will even notice. My mom telling a family member at Christmas that I'm not smart enough to put a toy and robots together with my niece. I was in high school. I was also in a robotics group. I was kind of a fat kid, and my brother used to bully me a lot about it. And I feel like everyone thought of me back then as just that nerdy fat kid. Now, I'm slightly on the chubbier side but I still feel like I'm fat. I'm also self-conscious about my smile and the way I laugh because one kid in middle school did an impression of it as a joke and it stuck with me. I'm also insecure about my voice because I was very lonely in high school. I barely spoke to anyone, so I kinda think my voice sounds weird and that I have a weird way of speaking. No insult on that last part, but I overheard once that a girl told a teacher in high school like, yeah, he has a trouble with speaking. He kinda speaks oddly, which just cemented my insecurity. This one time when I was a kid, I was wearing my soccer shoes and running from my house to the car to go to a game. My dad was waiting for me inside the car and he saw me running. When I got inside he told me, "Don't run with those shoes on again," to which I said, "You're right, I might trip and fall and hurt myself," to which he replied, "I don't give a frick about you, but those shoes were expensive." It's been about 28 years since that happened and I still remember that moment and how deep my heart hurt like it just happened. You are the worst I have ever had. Worse than the guy who raped me. And if you ever want to keep a girl or marry someone, then you should never have ex ever again. So you know what? I won't. Ever. Because now I freaking hate the thought of ex or being that vulnerable with someone who could destroy me that easily ever again. No one will probably see this, but I was paralyzed from an illness during middle school. I was sent to rehab to learn to walk again, but I couldn't make any improvement and I got so depressed about it. At one point, an exasperated nurse said, "Do you want this for your life? Are you just going to be in a wheelchair and be a burden forever?" She probably didn't mean it, but that sank in so much. I still have to use a wheelchair 10 years later and I can't help but feel super guilty and ashamed, as if I could have learned to walk if I'd just tried harder. Just after my divorce, when my church leader referred to me as damaged goods, made fun of my nose while I was laughing. I still to this day cover my face when I laugh. I was around 10 years old and sitting in the car at a McDonald's drive-thru waiting to order when my dad reaches over and grabs my stomach. He pokes and grabs a handful of my stomach and asks, "What's this?" Dot. I just go quiet, and as you can imagine, was not really interested in McDonald's that night. Not that it matters, because no one should do that to another person under any circumstances, but I was not an overweight child. I was a healthy average weight, and still am. But even now, decades later, I am really self-conscious about my stomach. Constant jibes about my height. As an adult I've got no presence at bars or anything, and I'm always asked for ID unless I don't shave for a while. Also called carrot cruncher because of my receded jaw and larger front teeth. This was in primary school, and I still can't smile because of it. Your Minecraft house looks like still hurts till this day. Stop trying to be funny. Nowhere near the meanest, but for some reason very effective. Have not been funny since. Has your hairline always been like that? I now point out my hairline before anyone else can. When I was 11 and my mom told me I was the cancer of the family. My BF saying I was hardly a full real person. Like he's called me a B, a punt, selfish, is mad when I fall asleep before him without telling him, like passing out while watching a movie. He'll wake me up by yelling, and a bunch of other but that one really hurt. Edit. As I'm reading through my own comment I'm wondering why I'm still with him. After finding out I have stage 3 cervical cancer, I call my recent ex and father of my child. He says, "Good, you deserve it." I cried until I had no tears left. When I was in junior high, my crush told me my face looked like it was covered in burns. I had really bad acne. A few years later I got Accutane and found out he's got a micropenis, so who's the real loser here? Mine isn't as serious as some of these. But last week, a man who met my stepdad a few years ago asked me, "Didn't you serve in Vietnam?" I'm 28. Ouch for my aging. When I was younger, I was doing something stupid, I can't remember what, in front of my dad and older sis, then she just, out of the blue, said that's your child. Right single quotation mark. I hope that someday I can be proud of you. Yeah, thanks dad. It doesn't look like it, but it was the only time where he say something like that to me. He was always there for me, but that time, I don't remember what had happened. Probably bad result at school. He was the worst. Girl, here, let me buy you another shot. Me, no thanks. I'm not an attractive drunk girl. You're not attractive anyway. Me, proceeds to take multiple shots. My mom to me during a conversation about me being trans. What if somebody I know sees you? That one cut deep. I could easily come up with several. When I was in 6th or 7th grade, my so-called friends spontaneously decided that they hated me, so they gave me hell for months. There were a lot of unkind words, but I never got over them calling me a parasite. About 5 years ago I was crushing hard on my flatmate's best friend. I can't quite remember the situation, but after having made a slightly hopeful comment, another housemate just looked at me and said, "Oh love, don't ridicule yourself." I know what she meant and she was right. But I'll never get over the thought that whenever I like someone, it's ridiculous because I am. My sister said my singing was like a rabid coyote. My boyfriend at the time agreed. We broke up shortly after. I haven't sang since, though it was one of my favorite things to do. Been about 6-7 years. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment.